And welcome everyone to this week in Svelte. Today is sorry for my screen today because it will be much smaller because today I just broke my larger screen, so it's being repaired now. But for the moment, I have to surface one screen, and that's also why I basically had to do some weird stuff to get my screen here, but also be able to interact with you in the chat. So yeah, I had to do some weird stuff, but the changelog will be the same. Like actually, not the changelog. The agenda will be the same. We will have the changelog, as you can see here. We will go as usual over the changelog for the latest release of Svelte and Svelte Kit. We have a very small. I already told you that there will be this announcement every this week in Svelte for the moment, so you probably already know what I'm talking about. And today we will have a very special community showcase. So stay tuned for that. I don't know, like maybe you have read on Twitter something about, but like it's a very special one, and I'm very excited about it. But let's go ahead and start with the usual agenda, which is the changelog. So let's start with Svelte. So as usual, like we have a bunch of releases because we are actually in the process of finalizing. Like we have had almost 90 release since Svelte 5 was first announced to the world. So I think we are getting close. Let's see what's going on in Svelte 5. So we have some breaking changes actually. Apply fallback value every time in rune mode. Yeah, well, this is I think is like to bring the fallback value of a prop in line, I think, with the current behavior of Svelte 4. So interesting. Handle multiple snippet parameters with one or more being optional. Interesting. Probably this is a bug. Take form resets into account for two-way bindings. Yeah, two-way bindings. Obviously, the bind things, and probably it was not updating that. This is very funny. Like this is the bug that we found last this week is Svelte. So if you take a look, Brunner, which is actually Stalky, like submitted the bug that we found live on stream because like you could not create state inside inline functions inside the template, and now you can. So it was basically fixed like I think 10 minutes after this week in Svelte. So as usual, like they are, as you can see, 7 days ago, like they are like really punching down on this release. Add dir name to HTML input attributes, update type of option targets, correctly hydrate control. There was a bunch of fixes on hydration recently, so they are working on that part. So there's was a bunch of fixes on the hydration of Svelte. So yeah, and there's another breaking change. Always run pre-effect immediately. This was, I think it was like it's also described in the PR. Like currently doing a deep dive on effect, and found myself stumped as to why we treat effect pre this way. So basically, like before, if you do effect pre, it will run these, it will run these, and then it will run these, which is kinda counterintuitive. So they fixed it, and now they are run immediately. So it will run these, it will run these, and then it will run these, which I think it's more like interesting because it's in line with what one would expect. Use implicit return for each block keys. Like this is just something about the compiled code. Breaking, there's another breaking. It is actually 24 hours ago. So a lot of breaking changes recently. When linking split view. So yeah, basically like it's fixing these where uh, hmm. Sibling effect don't necessarily run in source order, which they should, but BCA order on updates. Oh wow, I was not expecting this. So yeah, ordering of the effects, interesting. And there's actually a release like 23 years ago, apply animate stuff, and there is a release actually 7 hours ago. This is also interesting, like, because this is actually something that we explored last this week in Svelte about set and map and date and stuff like that. And basically this is just like allowing you to use those on the server, because like they are just exporting the normal one, because like on the server you don't need reactivity, like it's just run once. So on the server, if you do import map from Svelte reactivity, you just get a normal map. So this is also pretty interesting. Yeah, okay. These are all basically the changes that are happening on Svelte 5. Again, we are close to 90 release since Svelte 5 was announced. Very interesting. Let's see if Svelte Kit had... Okay. Fix only hydrate when page is server rendered. Oh, this is interesting. I think maybe... Let me see. When using Svelte 5, we are always calling hydrate instead of mount, even if the landing page was SSR false. So basically, like, even if you were using SSR false, so you were basically just mounting a client side, they were still hydrating. And this obviously doesn't work, because if it's not being server-side rendered, it just need to be mounted. So it was a fix, interesting fix. And it's also very interesting, like that we are getting some fixes for Svelte 5 in Svelte Kit, in my opinion. So I don't think we have other... Yeah, add support for Google Cloud Run Adapter Auto. Oh, this is interesting. So yep, now if you want to run on Google Cloud Run, you can do it with Adapter Auto. Very interesting. So let's move to the quick fact and announcement, because I want to reiterate that like Svelte Summit is coming. It will come on April 27 of 2024. And also, like, this is probably like the last day, or like today and tomorrow, to actually submit a talk, because they will probably close the submission soonish. I think the plan is to go over the talks during Easter. Kevin obviously doing the job of of like actually going over the talk during Easter, because what's better than checking the talks in during Easter. And just as a reminder, Kevin is like the factotum of Svelte Society, and it will also co-host Svelte Summit together with Brittany. So this was the very small announcement, and now what I want to do is actually I will hide my screen for a moment, so you will get my big face, but just for a moment, because I want to want to invite to join me on the stage Andreas. So hi, Andreas. And
Hello.
for those who doesn't know Andreas, like, you might know him under a different name, a happy face, happy yellow face, Ciscoid. I don't know if the pronunciation is correct, right?
Yes,
Ciscoid.
it's correct.
And you might recognize Cisco Hit, because like it's one of the creator of probably one of the most popular library for Svelte Kit nowadays. Library is called Superform, and he's today like here because he recently released. Actually, like it's been a while now, right?
Yes, it's been maybe a few months even.
Yeah, like it recently,
Yeah.
a couple of months,
Yeah.
released its new version of Superform, which with a bunch of like new things added. So it's here to present us Svelte Kit Superform. So I will add your screen to the stage and
Okay.
um, remove myself from the stage. And if anyone has any question, like for Andreas on Superform, but even like question about Svelte 5, Svelte, feel free to write them in chat because we can then discuss them later. So I will add your screen and see you in a while.
Okay. So Superforms, the form library for Svelte Kit, of course. And today, well, if I want to talk a little bit about the version 2 upgrade, most of it is on the website. I have compiled a long list of what's new here. So I think when we talk about what's going to happen now with the example, I'm going to show a different part of Superforms that's been very recently added. If you want to know how to handle actual forms, just check the website. It should be quite comprehensive in getting started with the forms itself. But what I want to show now is a bit of a different thing that is also very useful regarding forms. It's like if you have this, my example here is a list of expenses. So this is like a bank statement import, basically. And it's common that you want to classify all these expenses in some way, but you don't have that much data. So you have like a text from the bank and maybe some amount, and you want to classify this. And it's a bit tedious to go through everyone and just go like this. So what I like to do here, this list is just a classify button that calls the backend and just classifies it with like a neural network. It can be anything. So a simple neural network can do this quite efficiently. And if you want to do this the usual way, well, you need to call a fetch function. You need to like call the backend, maybe have an endpoint, and it would be a bit of a manual work. It would be a bit different for every if you have multiple endpoints, it will be a bit different all the time. So I think Superforms, this new feature, can help to really make this simple and streamline it in a nice way. So to show this, we want to send this. We have this text here, and we have, of course, a hidden ID for this row. So we want to send this ID and this text to the backend. And now instead of doing starting on an endpoint, with this Superforms feature, we can do this just in a normal form action. So if we start with the schema, which is the basics that we should have for every form. So I'm using Valibot for this one, so it's not SOD at the moment. So we want to send the ID, as I said, and we want to send the text. So we have them defined here in the schema. And then we have this form action, which I will call classify, as we just want to classify this expense that we have. And in this, we do it as usual. We call this super validate function with the request from the form action, and we send it this Valibot adapter. So Superforms know that we're using a Valibot schema here. This is all imported from Superforms up here. So when we have this here, we can start sending data to it. So we want to classify this data. And to do this, the first thing we should do always, we should check if the form is valid. So if it's not valid, then we can return fail. And we should just return the form like this. So all the errors from the validation will be passed on back to the client, so we can display them and or do whatever we want with it. So from here on, it's a valid data in the form, guaranteed based on this schema. So I'm just doing this. We want the category for this expense. So I'm having this categorizer, which I imported already. And we want to classify something. So we classify the form data, and we have the text here that we sent. So, and this category now we get if we was able to categorize it, we get an ID back and some other data. So we just put it here. We just return this category together with the form as well. So now back here, now we want to connect all these buttons to this form action. And this new feature is called of Superforms. It's called SPA action form. So it's kind of a single page application, but it's still it's like a hidden form that you can do all sort of things. For example, if you want to click on a button and send something to the server, you can do this with this form. So to set this one up, we can do just as usual. We can call Superform and we use the data from the form as we have. And there we have the Superform. Now to configure this to be a SPA action form, we just set this SPA option, which is usually just true if you want to disconnect this form entirely from the backend for a single page application. But now we can just send it a form action. So if we just send it this classify as we did, now it will, as soon as we submit this form, if we just send it here, it will return it as usual. And now when we want to connect all those classified buttons here to this form, it's just as simple as this form. And instead of Superform here, now we can deconstruct. And the only thing we need to deconstruct is the enhance function. So we just do form enhance this. And now every button here is connected to the form action, the backend. But now it's no data in the form, so it's we have to add something here, of course. So we can use some hidden input fields. So we wanted to send the ID and text, if you remember. So we have an ID and the value here. We're looping through all those expenses here. So every expense has an ID. So we use that. And we do another field here hidden. And it was text, like this. And now we basically have this classification ready. So when we click classify here now, it will send it to the server. And the server will process it according to this. So if it's valid, it will send back this category. So how do we get it here? Well, as usual with SPA forms, we should use the onUpdate event on the form, which is quite convenient. So in this event can be deconstructed into two useful parameters, form and result. So this result here is basically the action result we get back. And if you want to get type safety on this, we should use this action data. So there is now a useful helper on this. So if we make a variable called action and we type this as form result, which is imported from Superforms, and we use our action data for the result data here. So now we get the action result, the data of the action result, and we now have some very useful things in it. So what we get back now is just what we sent here. So we have a category sent back. So we can check it out immediately. So if we have no category, which can happen if it doesn't categorize it, I have a toast component ready, so we can just return a toast warning. We can say could not classify. Then we can even use this form as we have posted the form data. We can just reuse it here. Otherwise, we'll try to find this expense. So we have a list of expenses, this list here. So let's try to find it. We have an ID for it, and it should be equal to the form data that posted this ID. So if there is an expense, thanks to the Svelte 5 magic now, we can just do this expense category equal to the action category ID. Full type safety. And let's see if it works. So if you want to categorize this crazy Jack here, yeah, you see it changed to eating out. And we try here, it could not classify it, so it's here. And as you can see, it works in a few cases as well. And then if we keep going, we can, of course, when we change this manually, we can, of course, train this neural network so it improves over time, so it will be better and better. So I think this is a convenient way to do things. You can use a normal form action for things. You can return it to get full type safety and convenience of Superforms. And just another nice little convenience is to show a spinner icon, which is basically free with Superforms. You have this delay timer. So if things take a long time, you can do it like this. If delayed, we can do, let's do this inside button so we can remove this classify. So if it's delayed, we can just do a spinner. And I think it needs an alt. So this. So if it's delayed, but now it's very fast, so it won't be delayed. So we have to do it like this. Have to wait. We just wait 1 second here. And now we can see that after 500 milliseconds, this delay timer will kick in. Yeah. But as you see here, all the buttons are now, as they are connected to the same delay time. So we need to use one little trick here. There's a prop called form ID, which is the ID for the form, which is just a string, and it uses if you have multiple forms on the same page. So we can use the onSubmit here. To set up this, you can set form ID to this string value of the expense ID that we have already here. So now we change form ID to what we are currently submitting. And then we just do like this. If it's delayed and the form ID is equal to this expense ID, then we show the spinner. So then we know exactly which one we're clicking on. Just like this. So yeah, that's it for this small little demo. I try to hurry up because I know time flies when you do this. So just one brief little look at the new thing here. I organized all the examples that was previously on StackBlitz, but now they're on this Svelte lab by a certain someone that we can talk about soon. So all the examples are now here organized, so you can even filter by tags. So if you're interested in how to do some things with checkboxes, multi-step forms, file uploads, you can just filter here and check it out and experiment on Svelte Lab directly. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, I'm joining back again because it was very, very cool, especially the part when you mentioned Svelte a lot. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting. I think, like, it was actually like, I think I particularly like this because I think Svelte Kit is one of the few libraries that has such a like Svelte Kit is one of the few frameworks that has such a complete form library. Like maybe because we care about forms, and so that's why we are building stuff like this. And I think it's very important because I mean we know that having a form is very very important. And Artifacts is asking, can I ask question? Absolutely yes.
Yes.
So if you have any question, feel free to ask, and we will see if Andreas can answer. Also, like I very enjoy the choice of the example because, like, I mean, you actually like used AI in some way, which is interesting. So, it's the hot topic of the day, so it's good to have it included in
Yep.
the examples. And as usual, I think it's also very interesting how it manage everything. Like I think you come up with a very like neat, clean API. Like the fact that you can have a single, basically, like you always do. Okay, you always return form. You always call super validate. You always call Superform. It's very
Yeah.
structured, which I think it's important because like if you have to do 200 things in 200 different ways, it gets
Mm.
easily confusing. One question that I have, I've yet to use your library, so I have heard of it. I actually wanted to try. For the moment, like at work, we don't have a reason yet to use it because it's not very form heavily. One question that I have is like the if you remove the SPA attribute, like the single page application attribute, what's the effect on the form?
The effect is that it will update the page in a different way because
Okay.
this when this spa attribute is set to a string, it will invalidate the page. It won't invalidate the page. It won't react on any other updates than itself. So if you have a normal form and you submit and you get a valid result back, it will call invalidate. It will update the page status and everything. But this is more like a hidden form that won't react
Okay.
on
Okay.
anything unless you tell it to.
Okay. So basically, like this will not rerun the load function, right? So it's up
Yes,
to you to update. That's
yes,
actually what you are saying. It's up to
yes.
you to actually. Okay. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
And it's very easy to do that. So if you want to invalidate it, you can just set it to true like this.
Obviously.
You
Yeah.
set invalidate. And also, if you don't use SPA at all, then you can only use it on one form instance.
Okay.
So
Okay.
otherwise, there will be collisions. But this mode is like special for using it in list like this. So you can have like action buttons
Yeah.
that will do the different things.
Very interesting. And the
Mm.
question that Artifacts had was in single page application mode, I loaded the form from pluspage.ts and I want to submit it to a post endpoint. How can I send the form back serialized?
Serialized. Mm. Well, the easiest way to serialize things is to use this data type JSON, which is basically will be like a remote procedure call. It will take all the form as it is with all the correct data types. It basically won't even you don't have to care about form data being strings. You can just put anything you want in this form attribute, even nested data and anything, and it will just serialize it and send it there. But I think the problem with if you have a SPA like this, then it's not connected in any way to the backend. So then you have to use the on update to do everything. So the normal way with SPA like this is that here you have to call the backend manually. Usually you call an external API. But now when you have this, when you can call any form action like this, maybe this is I think this could be quite a useful way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. So basically, like if you add this data type JSON, and if the single page application mode is expressed as an endpoint that accept an application JSON, right? API call.
It in a way, yes, you can do that, but then you also need to return an action result.
Oh yeah, obviously from the
And I have,
endpoint, right?
yes, but I have a helper function for that, so it's very simple to do that.
Yeah, that's also very interesting. Like I think this, like for single page application, this is actually super interesting because it basically like allow you to remove all the tedious part of like adding the JSON stringifying, call fetch and stuff like that. So this is very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm more used to, like, generally when I use a form, I try to use it in a progressive and answered way. So I'm trying to use it with like so that it will fall back to the normal behavior of a form. But I think for single page application, this is super interesting and very powerful. And also another interesting fact that I want to like emphasize is the fact that you actually wrote a series of adapter for basically I think you wrote it for most of the validation libraries, right?
Yeah, there are 7 of them now.
Yeah, I think like this was one of the most requested thing probably.
Oh yes.
And also I remember seeing you because I follow you on GitHub, and I remember seeing you like sending PR to various because I think there is some sort of spec for validation libraries, right?
Yes,
that like allow you to convert from one validation library to basically JSON.
Yes, that's the whole thing. Yeah, there is this JSON schema, the validation standard, which is very comprehensive and nice. But the thing with this is that every validation library has to support some kind of conversion of their schema to this JSON schema specification. And finding that for every library is it's very difficult. It's not everyone has this possibility. It's getting better, and most of them have now. So I'm happy to maybe have made some impact there as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think you did most of the job there, because I remember every once in a while I saw like your PR on, like, I don't know, JSON API schema for Valibot, JSON API schema for, I think, the Joy also you did. So yeah, it was very interesting. Like whenever I saw one PR, I immediately think like, yeah, I know why he's doing it.
Yeah, and it's so nice to have this standard, because then you're basically free to, you don't have to worry about how any validation library works, as long as they can export their schema metadata to this standard.
Yep.
So it's very useful to have done that conversion. I'm happy for that with the version 2.
And you're also using the adapter pattern, which I think is also like one of the new cool kid. Like everybody's using the adapter pattern nowadays, and I think it's very powerful. I think it's very powerful. So that's why probably is doing it. And we also have another question from Artifacts, that is, we can just return JSON form in Svelte Kit post endpoint and use the structured form. And I think the answer is what you said before, like you need to return an action, right? But there is an helper for that.
Yes, there is on the website. I think you can just it's called action result. It's just it's like a helper like this. So instead of returning in the endpoint, instead of returning form as you do in the form action, you just return action result and the status and just the form in here. And you get just as normal. It will work exactly the same.
Very, very, very interesting.
Mm.
Okay. If anybody has other question, Andreas is here for a little bit more. Like we have the last a few other minutes. In the meantime, like thank you very much, Andreas, to present this, and obviously thank you very much for Superforms, because I think it's a great addition to like the Svelte Kit ecosystem.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad to contribute to the community. It's a great framework, great people, everything. It's really nice.
Yep, I'm glad that you like it. I mean, I have the same experience. Like I love the Svelte community, and I love to try to contribute back to the community.
And I want to say thank you to you as well for Svelte Lab, because it's such a such a nice way to experiment with the.
I mean, that's basically why we build it with Antonio. Like I am one of the guy that like I'm constantly trying to. Whenever I have an idea, I don't want to wait until I get home to like set up a proper project and stuff like that. I want to quickly try out something, and that's why also like Svelte Lab is very mobile friendly. Like we choose to use Code Mirror instead of Monaco. We choose to have a mobile design because like I literally, whenever I want to try something, I want to open Svelte Lab on my phone and try to start to hack around. And I think it's important. Like I basically, whenever I start a project, I start it on Svelte Lab and then I bring everything to the actual repo. So happy that like you find it useful, and happy that we can help. Okay, thank you, Andreas, for your time.
Thank you very much.
And see you around in the Svelte community. And actually, like we don't have a discussion, we don't have more to talk about. And so I want to like, I don't know, like for those who like, because it's Easter in a while, so happy Easter if you care. And I'll see you again in the next This Week in Svelte, which will be in a week. Thank you, everybody. I hope you learned something, and see you again in the next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.